Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cape Cod Baseball League's first ever playoff preview show. My name is Hallie DeVore. Join with me today, Ethan Kagno and Taylor Viles. Guys, how excited are we about the playoffs this year?
Well, it's been a fantastic regular season, and if the playoffs are anything like the regular season, it's going to stack up to be a fantastic one.
Yep, just as Taylor said, all four of these teams are so deserving of making the championship. It's going to be a tight playoffs. We'll see how it plays out.
So, guys, the playoffs are a little bit different this year because of COVID than in the past years. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so of course in 2019 there was 4 teams from each division. Obviously this year there's only 2. But with Bourne and Katuit and Brewster and Harwich, you know, it's anyone's game.
So we have Brewster and Harwich out of the East Division, Bourne and Katuit out of the West Division. And so Brewster, Harwich, and Bourne, those teams have been locked in for a longer period of time. However, Katuit and Falmouth were in this race in the last week before playoffs, trying to find out who's going to clinch that last spot. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Falmouth is a team that had a pretty good regular season, but kind of faltered down the stretch. As you were saying, Harwich, Brewster, they had really, really great regular season. Before I get into that playoff race, Yarmouth Dennis is a team that in the West would be a playoff team, but up against their rivals, Harwich and Brewster, they just fell a little bit short into that third seed. Now back into the West, Katuit, run by Mike Roberts, had a fantastic regular season, and he's a guy, they're the reigning Cape League champions. Mike Roberts is a guy who knows how to win. He knows how to put a winning team on the field, and he doesn't falter down the stretch. Falmouth and Katuit faced off against each other twice, back-to-back days. Katuit took the first one in Falmouth at Gov Fuller Field, 16-6, and then the next day they won at 12-9. So those are 2 games that if Falmouth had taken them, we could have Falmouth in the playoffs. But unfortunately for them, Katuit's in.
And Katuit, obviously, they took off a little bit. Wareham ended up taking over Falmouth in the West Division. Do you know a little bit more about that?
I think after Falmouth lost those 2 games against Katuit, all of the air in their sails just totally went out. And I mean, Wareham played Falmouth. I believe it was the last game because the last games were rained out. They played each other, and Wareham just kind of overtook the Commodores in the division. But yeah, Falmouth, once they lost those games, there was nothing going for them.
Well, there you have it. For the East Division, we're going to have Brewster in the 1 seed, and then Harwich, and then over in the West Division, we'll have Bourne in the 1 seed, and then Katuit. So now starting to take a closer look into these playoff teams. In the East Division, again, Brewster and Harwich. Taking a deeper look into Brewster, they went 22, 11, and 3 on the regular season. Who are some of their key players that you think we should look out for in the playoffs?
2 players for Brewster to keep your eye on this playoff series. First, Spencer Jones from Vanderbilt, the outfielder, came over to the Whitecaps after playing in the College World Series against Mississippi State. Once he came to Brewster, he batted .312, .424, 481 slash line alongside a .905 OPS. He had 6 stolen bases, showcasing a little bit of his speed in 25 games played. And in the last week of the season, we were actually lucky enough to be at the Bourne-Brewster game where Spencer Jones robbed a home run over the fence. Could be the play of the year against Bourne in that game. Then we have Jake Thompson, another key player from Oklahoma State. All-Star game selection. Tied for second in doubles on the Cape with 9. Batted .278, 3 homers, 2 triples, 21 walks on the season. So a very solid year. He'll be a key piece for the Whitecaps moving forward with a tough matchup against Harwich.
So another one of the key players I want to highlight for Brewster, Zach Neto. So he left earlier in the season due to an ankle injury, and now he's actually going to be back for the playoffs. He was just recently reactivated. He was supposed to play on the day of the rainout, but unfortunately was not able to. That was going to be the last game of the season. But he will, in fact, be back for playoffs. He was batting .304 before he left because of that injury. So it should be really interesting to see what Coach Chev does with him and Trey Faltini up in the middle infielder. Both good hitters, both extremely good out in the field. So that should be another key player and another key dynamic to look for in the middle infield. As far as pitching goes, Bryce Hubbard out of Florida State, easily Brewster's best pitcher. He was just recently released. Who do we think is going to have to take the mound, take the reins for Brewster?
So Brewster's ace, Bryce Hubbard, won't be with the team for the playoffs, but he was fantastic this regular season. The southpaw from Florida State was an all-star selection. He should be considered one of the finalists for the BFC White House Most Outstanding Pitcher of the Year award. He hadn't allowed a single earned run in his last 5 starts, which amounted to 27 straight innings without allowing an earned run. His .133 batting average against and .71 whip both ranked second among active qualified pitchers. As said priorly, he won't be with the team. They're going to have to turn to Teddy McGraw out of Wake Forest. He could be the possible starter for Game 1. And according to the staff, 3.66 ERA with 27 innings pitched, 27 strikeouts.
Yeah, so that is definitely a big loss for Brewster to not have him. But again, looking to Hubbard, like you said, should be a really interesting turnout. Pitching has been very key for Brewster, so it should be really interesting how that'll help them or hurt them moving forward in the playoffs. And now moving on to the West Division. So obviously we have Bourne clinching this number 1 spot early. Their record on the season was 24-9-3. They've been extremely hot all year, a very consistent team. They had 9 wins before their first loss at the beginning of the season. And then overall in the Cape, we had players come and go to Team USA, the draft. But recently, since August 1st, we've had a lot of new guys activated. Harwich activated a guy, Brewster activated 2, Katuit activated 2, and Bourne activated 4 new guys, but not without the loss of a whole bunch of players too, right?
Well, the reason they had to activate all these guys was because such notable players left the case. I'll start with Tristan Vierling, a 1.03 ERA on the season, 22 strikeouts, and 17.1 innings pitched. He was considered their ace for the first half of the summer until he left. And then on the offensive side, Braylon Wimmer, 282 batting average, 2 home runs, and 6 doubles. He was fantastic on the offensive side. He's gone. Now the guys who have come in to the Cape have to try to make some waves in their absence.
Yeah, so like you were saying, Bourne, they don't have these guys anymore. So give us some notable players you think we should look out for that are going to be here in this playoff series.
Well, one of the guys, if you go to any Bourne Braves games this season, was Dalton Rushing. You notice him everywhere, first baseman and catcher from Louisville. He's a power hitter. He had 6 home runs sneakily. I don't think anyone really realized how much of a power hitter he was for the Braves. He faltered a little bit lately, but got his batting average back up over 300 to end the season. He's going to be a power threat, and the Katuit pitching staff should really watch out for him. Then you got Christian Knapczyk. He was fantastic all season long. Finished very near the top of the batting average race, 321 with 8 doubles for Knapczyk. Very reliable option, and he was in the middle infield for the Braves, which just fantastic middle infield with Knapczyk. I do want to touch on one other position player, Halle. Joe Lampe, the shortstop or center fielder out of ASU, first off, had a fantastic season in center field, made plenty of diving catches, but also offensively, as the leadoff hitter, his on-base percentage was through the roof. A .430 on-base percentage due to 21 walks and 7 hit by pitches. The walks is tied third, and the hit by pitches is tied for second in the league. But if he can get on base for the Braves as the leadoff hitter, they'll be able to get him home with the guys who follow him, like Knapczyk and Rushing, who I already mentioned. But that's a key to success.
Yeah, this on-base percentage is really key for winning games at sometimes. One of my favorite movies ever, Moneyball, that's one of the key points in it. It's a skill in and of itself to get on base. And with good people coming up to the plate after with good hits, that's how you win games. But those guys you were all talking about, those are position players. Who do we have that's going to come out to pitch that's going to help Bourne in this series?
Well, there are 2 guys who are going to be looked at for either game 1 or 2. It doesn't really matter, but Michael Sansone and Austin Parsley. Both guys have been tremendous starters for this Bourne team this season. Sansone only 2 walks on the season, a 2.07 ERA with 25 Ks, and Parsley only 1 walk, 2.05 ERA and 36 Ks. Both of those pitchers are going to be fantastic in these playoffs. Well, they need them to be fantastic, to be totally honest, in order for them to get past Katuit in the first round. But the last guy I want to mention is Eric Adler on the back end for these Braves. The reliever has been fantastic this season, only 2 earned runs allowed on the season, and they came in the last 2 weeks. So for the first 3 quarters of the season, he was not allowing anything. And if any Katuit batters come up to plate in the 9th inning with a down by any runs, I really fear for them.
And now finally, the last team we want to look at, Katuit. Again, they were in this weird spot with Falmouth going back and forth, trying to figure out who was going to clinch that second spot for the playoffs behind Bourne. Their final record ended 18-17-1. And unlike Bourne, who's been a really consistent team this whole season, Katuit's been super back and forth. 1 second, they're losing 15-5 to Hyannis, a team who was at the bottom of the West Division. And then all of a sudden, they're on this 5-game winning streak, clinching themselves that second playoff spot. So their offense has really clicked in these last couple weeks. And I talked to some of their staff, and they were saying this is just a group of guys that wants so badly to win this championship.
Well, Hallie, you're exactly right. This Katuit team wants to win. Coach Mike Roberts knows how to coach a team that really wants to win. They had a fantastic winning streak to end the season. They had a blowout loss to Bourne, unfortunately, the second to last game, but finished on a hot streak. That winning streak showed that they're for real, especially what they did against Falmouth. This Katuit team is ready to win. They've entered this playoffs with a fantastic opportunity.
So now, give us some of these notable players. Obviously, a good middle infield that Coach Mike Roberts loves, Ryan Ritter and Eric Brown Jr. Tell me a little bit about them, and then a little bit about some of these other players we should be looking out for.
Well, Ryan Ritter is one of the reasons they went on this hot streak. He finished third in the league in average, .330. It wasn't super notable in the first few weeks, but really picked it up in the second half of the season. He's a big singles batter, gets on base, which is important. Has shown a little bit of power, a home run and a double, but he's one half of a stellar infield. And then Jace Grady is another player of note for Katuit, outfielder from Dallas Baptist. He's only played about half the games this season as he came in mid-July, but made an immediate impact, hitting .346 with 4 home runs. And then I know the player you want to talk about is Eric Brown Jr., primarily played second base this season for Katuit. How often do you find a speed guy who is also your power guy? He's leading the team right up there in the whole league with stolen bases with 13. Also has 5 home runs, which with the players on Katuit currently, he's leading the team in that as well, Hallie.
Yeah, Eric Brown, this middle infield power hitter, had 21 RBIs, batting .282. You cannot give this guy pitches to drive.
He will absolutely burn the pitching staff, whoever he's facing. He's so good.
And then on the topic of pitching, what are we looking at for Katuit pitching-wise?
Well, the pitcher I'm going to focus on is Jake Brooks out of UCLA. He ate the most innings for Katuit this year, 32.1, very respectable 3.06 ERA with 24 strikeouts, and he started 6 out of the 8 games he appeared in for the Cavaliers. He's very reliable, only 4 walks allowed this season. Katuit is going to be looking for some big innings from him this playoffs.
Yeah, you're definitely right. He is going to need to eat up a lot of innings because Katuit's bullpen, they've been struggling a little bit, so I think you're right. Jake Brooks is going to have to step up as far as pitching for Katuit. So overall, what do you think it's going to take in the West Division for Bourne or for Katuit to make it far in the playoffs?
Well, Bourne definitely has one of the best pitching cores in the league. They had one of the best team ERAs all season long.
Absolutely right, Ethan. They had a fantastic ERA, but a lot of that occurred in the first 2/3 of the season. The first 22 games, they had 2.5 runs allowed per game, that pitching staff for Bourne. In the last 14, that number almost doubled, 5.7 per 9. So that's a pitching staff that if they want to be successful in the playoffs, they really have to find more of that earlier season success and stick to the strikes. And for Katuit, they're coming into these playoffs red hot. And my key for them is just stay hot. This is a team that finds a way to make the championship when no one sees how they can. They have tremendous luck. They have a tremendous manager. So they just need to continue to find ways to get runs on the board, and they'll be in the championship.
All right, now let's wrap things up with our round 1 playoff predictions. So over in the West Division, this is difficult because a part of me wants to see Bourne take this because, they've been so consistent. I feel like they're so well-deserving. But at the same time, Katuit back in 2019, they were the 4 seed coming in, and they pulled it off. They had the drive and the determination, and I love that. And I would love to see that happen again. So I want to say Katuit's going to take that in a 2-game sweep.
Wow. That's bold. That is bold. But you know what? We've seen Katuit do it. We've seen Mike Roberts manage a team to do that. So you could be spot on, but I'm going to go actually in the opposite direction. I think Bourne is really going to pick back up to where they were earlier in the season. I think their game 1 and 2 starters, Samson and Parsley, are going to be on fire, and I think Bourne's going to take it in a 2-game sweep over Katuit. They played Katuit in the second to last game of the season, beating them 13-1. That was a dominant showing at Dorn Park, and I don't see why they can't keep that up.
Going back to what Hallie said, obviously Katuit, one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in the Cape League, went 6-3-1 in their last 10 games. They're absolutely phenomenal. They could pull off the upset. They've done it in the past, but I'm going to stick with Bourne on this one in 3 games. I think it's going to be a very competitive series, but as Taylor touched upon, those relief pitchers are going to be too much for the Katuit Cavaliers.
All right, so how much money are we putting on this 2-game sweep here?
Anything can happen in the Cape League. I don't really think you can bet on this because it's anything can happen.
You're right. One of my favorite things about the Cape League is that it's anyone's game on any given day. These are all very competitive, top-tier players. But now, moving on to the East Division, what are our thoughts there?
I like Harwich out of the East Division. I think Brewster losing Bryce Hubbard is just going to be too much for them to overcome. I like Harwich. They're a very balanced team. They can hit. They've got Brock Wilkin. They've got Press Kavanaugh. And I think Trey Dombrowski is really going to show what he's made of in these playoffs.
So I'm actually going to agree with you on that one. We are here at White House Field, home of the Harwich Mariners. I like them winning that series, even though the season series went in favor of Brewster 4-1. Like I was saying earlier, I'm in favor of the underdog. Any team can beat any other team, especially here in the Cape, on any given day. So I'm going to take Harwich on that one as well.
3 games, 2 games?
Oh, sorry. We're going with the sweep. I'm just going to go with the 2-game sweep again.
All right, for both divisions there. I'm going to have to agree with both of you as well. Harwich over Brewster. It's going to be an upset, but it's going to be a great series all around. Brewster's average isn't great in the batter's box, and I think combined with the stellar starting pitching such as Dombrowski for Harwich, it's just going to be too much for the Brewster batters to handle. Well, it looks like there you have it. Ethan and I pick Harwich and Bourne. Bourne trying to win their first championship since 2009, and Harwich looking to be back in the championship and have a little bit of revenge this year as they were in it in 2019. And then Hallie picking Harwich and Katuit. So there we go.
Yes, well, thank you so much for joining us on this playoff preview show, and thanks so much for following along with the Cape League this regular season. For Ethan Kagno, Taylor Viles, I'm Hallie DeVore with the Cape Cod Baseball League, and we will see you tonight.